Hello, my name's Rachel. I'm the licensed lay minister here in the parish. If you're old enough to remember the 70s, you'll probably remember the song By the Rivers of Babylon, made popular by Boney M. It's based on Psalm 137. By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. There our captors asked us for songs. They said, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How can we sing the Lord's songs in a strange land? The psalm was written after the nation of Judah was conquered by the Babylonians in 587 BC. Most of the priests and leaders and the wealthy were taken into exile in Babylon, leaving behind the poor to fend for themselves. To the Jewish people, their land symbolised God's blessing and his presence with them. But now the exiles were living in a strange land with a strange culture, far away from God and from the temple that was the centre of their worship. They had some big questions to ask. Would they ever go home? Did the disaster mean that God had abandoned them? Did God even have any power in Babylon? No wonder they lamented, "How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land?" 2,500 years later, we're also in a strange land, lamenting the loss of freedom, companionship and jobs, mourning for those we've lost but can't properly say goodbye to, wondering what the future holds, wondering where God is in all this, having to learn how to sing the Lord's song in this strange land. The exile seemed an irredeemable disaster for the nation of Judah, but in fact so many blessings came out of it. The exiles were forced to find new ways to worship, and so synagogues developed as places of prayer and teaching. As they reflected on how they'd come to be God's chosen people, they wrote down the stories of their history and their faith. And so large parts of the Old Testament were written or edited at this time. Even some of our favourite stories, such as Daniel, are about life in exile. And as they questioned their faith and identity in the light of this crisis, they came to understand that their faith was bigger than the temple, and God was bigger than the promised land. We're living in a time of lament and suffering. There's no shortcut through that, but there are still blessings to be found. In the community spirit that's sprung up, in the appreciation we've seen for key workers, in the sight of clear blue skies above Delhi, in the discovery that God isn't trapped in our church buildings. How might these blessings transform our nation and our world as the exile transformed the nation of Judah? What new songs might we learn to sing? 70 years after they left, the exiles, or at least their descendants, were allowed to return to Judah and rebuild the temple. Psalm 126 expresses their joy. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. God, who is faithful to the exiles, is faithful to us too. Whether it takes 70 days or 70 years, one day we will gather together and sing songs of joy.